Great. So very quickly, we're going to discuss and go in depth as to how different HR leaders and not just HR leaders, but even a COO within this panel as well, how we view mental wellness in the workplace. I think as we all know, mental wellness and mental health, mental well-being has been a big topic for everyone. But I think especially so in the workplace where a lot of our life resides, right? So I think a lot of the best companies have put in place initiatives, different solutions, different practices, policies to help tackle this. And I would love to hear from our different speakers today a bit more about how they tackle it. So before pausing the screen share, today we are honored to have three great leaders in your companies to share a bit more about mental wellness in the workplace. So first and foremost, we have Ingo Laubender, who is the Director of People at Panda APAC, a company that we all know and love and probably use every now and then. I'll let him introduce himself shortly. We have Eileen Ooi, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Omnicom Media Group Malaysia, who oversees and also implements a lot of the mental wellness initiatives in her company as well, a very large ad agency, right? So I think that's one that we get a different point of view. And last but not least, we have Daniel Tam, who is Head of HR at Schroders Southeast Asia, one of the world's largest asset management firms, and different sectors, different companies, but all driving a similar agenda of caring for their people's mental well-being. So without further ado, I'm just going to pause the screen and we're going to spotlight all the speakers. Hey, Ingo, Daniel, Eileen, good to see you all again. Thanks for joining us. So good to have you. Yeah, just to give I'm good. Just to give a bit of an intro for those that are just joining to the festival. My name is Theodoric, so I'm the co-founder and CEO of Intellect, and I'll be your moderator for this session. And we're going to deep dive, right, guys? So a bit more into mental wellness in the workplace. I think it has been something that all three of you have been actively thinking for the past year and have put in place certain things in place and certain policies as well. So let's kick it off with maybe a brief introduction from each of you, your roles in the company and what you oversee as well. So I'm just going to go in order of the screens. Ingo, how about you go first?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Theodoric. Really appreciate what a great honor it is, to be on this platform. I'm so excited for the Intellect Mental Health Festival in Asia 2021. It's, again, a very great honor to be here. And I believe that this is a fantastic platform to create awareness and exciting about the recent development around mental well-being. I hope this has been a fantastic journey so far for the audience, and likewise for those who present and are on the panel are gaining new insights through this as well. My name is Ingo Laubender. I'm leading the people function here at Panda, and I have the distinct pleasure to work with like-minded people in my team who really truly care about well-being at the workplace and make it really at the core of anything and everything that we do, because we believe if you're well, you're productive and engaged, and you have fun at work.
That's great. That's a great point. So thanks a lot, Ingo. And likewise, it's an honor to have you with us on this session. And we'll hear more about how you and your team look at mental wellness. I'm just going to move next to Eileen. Eileen, if you could give a quick introduction.
Hi, I'm Eileen. Thank you for having me. So excited. I think I've been a major advocate for the whole entire mental wellness and mental health situation of our nation, particularly coming from an agency, advertising and marketing world that I think has been pretty much under a severe, VUCA world that we live in that sense. So I am Eileen. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Omnicom Media Group. I lead the entire organization for the Malaysia business in Malaysia, overseeing multiple entities within the organization. We have close to over 150 staffs, I think, that is still working remotely, given Malaysia has only just started opening up. So naturally, I think just the sheer separation from not being in the organization has taken a toll on the organization as well as the industry. So it's a pleasure to be here to discuss and learn more even in this topic.
Thanks, Eileen. That's a great point. And you're right. I think Malaysia has been through quite a rough year in terms of like working and being locked up at home. I'm sure Ingo and Daniel can relate to as well, given you guys are folks in these markets. But thanks, Eileen. Great to hear from you. And last but not least, Daniel, who, if you don't mind just giving a quick introduction. I see that you have a a magic cup as well, the one that
not exactly the magic cup that our prime minister is using, but a similar one. So anyway, thanks. Firstly, thanks for inviting me to this festival. I mean, this is probably my first time attending a virtual festival like this and to be a panelist. So very exciting to share what some of the things that Shoulders has been doing. So I'm Daniel. I'm the head of HR for Southeast Asia. So I'm based in Singapore, and Singapore is our biggest location in terms of the APAC countries that we operate in. We have about 500 employees that's based here. So as you can imagine, I was just telling my boss a couple of days back when we were doing our year-end appraisal. I was just telling her the last 2 years is probably the hardest I've ever worked, and I think partly also because there's been a huge focus around employee wellness and having to constantly come up with new ideas of engaging with people. But I think it has also kind of brought forward the agenda in terms of bringing to the spotlight the importance of this topic. So happy to share through the course of the next 40-45 minutes. Yep.
Amazing. Thanks, Daniel. I think it's a great point, and just kind of open the ground. I think this session will be very, very relevant for people who are HR practitioners, employees, I think, or just business leaders in general, to I think get the purview and perspective of how each of you guys are seeing mental wellness. And what I can share is that I believe with a lot of the companies that we work with and see, you guys are very much the proactive and the forward-thinking group that actually actively thinks about mental wellness a lot more deeper. So I'm sure it will help a lot of people listening in. And interestingly, before leading to my next question, each of you guys come from different industries, right? For Ingo at Panda, it's a food delivery platform, a tech company. Eileen, it's an ad agency, a very large one that has different structures and processes. And for Daniel, it's a financial services business. So also different set of people, different set of processes. So I'd love to hear a bit more about what are the challenges that each of you guys see that employees look through in your own time. But let's start with a simple or more broader question, right? So what does mental wellness at the workplace mean to each of you guys, and how do you guys see it broadly for your own company? So maybe Ingo, similarly, I'll start with you first. How do you see mental wellness at Panda?
No, thanks for asking a question, Theodoric. So look, being a tech company, right, a lot of our pandas, as we dearly call them, are digitally savvy and natively drawn to tools and technology to get their day-to-day work done. And yeah, with technology, I mean, we all know it, right? The workplace blends more than ever into your personal life, right? And we wanted to ensure that we cater for work-life harmony with our employees. But overlaid with COVID, I think what we observed increasingly that there is a lot to be done, especially around mental well-being. So, and my team and I, we felt quite compelled to act about it, right? So even though you can have a policy about work hours and switching off your notifications, that wasn't good enough for us. We really wanted to build a culture that is supportive of an environment where everybody feels psychologically safe, can be his or her true self, and can be productive at the same time. So apart from looking obviously at programs to help educate, to build new avenues or support channels around mental well-being or general well-being, we wanted to look at a more deeper level into creating a psychologically safe culture. So we really walk the talk when it comes to well-being physically and mentally as well.
That's a good point. So I hear you saying that it's not just about, it's a big focus on mental wellness, but also creating a space that people feel safe to come up and be themselves. I think that's a great point that is encouraged, given that I think in today's day and age, sometimes employees may not feel comfortable speaking out in that sense, right? Even if they're struggling. So it's a great perspective. Yeah. Awesome. So Lee, what about you? How do you see mental wellness in Omnicom Media Group?
Yeah, well, for me, I think two-pronged for me. I think one is an organization mission and one is a personal mission that's very close to my heart. I think Malaysia and where honestly the nation is and where our government's focus is, mental wellness and mental health hasn't really taken a large priority. There has been a lot more talks, granted, for that, but there hasn't really been, I think, enough action or policies that even are in place. And the topic of mental health is still a taboo. So I think first thing first for me, I think my own personal mission is to say that it's okay. We should talk about it because through conversations, actions will start to happen. The organization mission is being in the advertising world and from the agency end, everyone always kind of talks about it, right? Oh, the agency world, the advertising world, oh, the most volatile, the longest hours, the most demanding work ever, right? And it's not far from the truth, but it also is a very enriching industry. It's also an industry that really propels growth. And the organization mission is to really go out there and say that, yes, it is a demanding industry, but it does not mean that the organization places profits above our people. Our people always come first because we're in a thinking industry. And to really break that belief system in the industry and also within our own organization to say, oh, we have to work our bums off, right? Because we are the agency. And that it's not. It is important that our people's well-being matters. It is important that we want to have a fruitful partnership and not I would say maybe not a less toxic partnership in that sense with our clients as well. So I think for me, it's what it means is really two-pronged, right? One is to really more for the nation, but the second is to just really break this within the organization and in the industry.
That's a good point. I think you're right. And one of the things that I really like that I think you do, Eileen, is really, as you shared, walk to walk, share that as leaders, you guys also show a vulnerable side of your own journey as well, which I think is a great point that you shared. But you're right. I think at the ad agencies world is one where it's known to be fast-paced, but I think similarly to known for the tech industry, also same for the financial sectors. There's different strategies, which I'd love to hear a bit more from each of you guys. But it's a good point of view to share, right?
We probably all share similar challenges, just in different worlds.
In different ways, but similar. Yeah. Nice. Daniel, what do you think? How do you guys see mental wellness at Schroders?
Yeah, so I just building on Eileen's last statement, actually, as I was hearing Ingo and Eileen share, is exactly what she has said. We are from different industries, but actually the challenges we have are the same. And I think what we're trying to do in the workplace is actually pretty similar. So I think for us in Schroders, especially coming from a financial services industry, I must say we have a bit of a, generally the industry has a bad reputation, right? I mean, it is an industry where people say that, it's all about the money, it's all about the bottom line, dollars and cents, right? People are just a tool, to get to where you want in terms of the profit and loss. But I think that's where, I guess, as a firm, we are very clear that we wanted to make a difference in terms of positioning ourselves against our competitors. And that I think this is very important that the message is really coming from the top, right? So you have, our global CEO, right? That he does, weekly podcasts to share on his personal side, showing his vulnerability. He has challenges. He is like any one of us. He struggles with his kids, being in and out of hospital. He needs to, he has schooling issues as well, with the kids. So I think that really helps to create that safe space that Ingo was talking about as a company. And of course, I think, with this whole COVID, it has really exacerbated a lot of the mental health issues, and more than ever, mental health awareness and the wellness of our people is definitely top of the agenda. So the firm has, of course, one of the things that we've done is, partnering with Intellect, and it's been a great, tool and I guess initiative, extremely well received. And I think that also kind of give the employees a platform, to have the avenue, to speak to somebody through the coaching sessions or just, simple, quick, 1 minute rescue sessions, right, to kind of help them out, right? So anyway, I'm not paid for this advertisement. I'm just saying that this is really one of the things that we've been trying to do, to partner with our people. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thanks, and thanks for sharing a bit more. I mean, I think it's a good point, right? You guys have put in place certain solutions, Intellect being one of them, but you guys are actually doing a lot more, and as you shared, how the leadership actually shares and opens up conversation. I think what Eileen mentions, opening up conversation drives eventually a lot of more of the movement of things. So it's a great point. Really good perspectives here. I want to dig into just one part, that building off what each of you guys have shared, and feel free to jump in here, right? Because I believe the challenges are similar. But I just want to ask, Daniel mentioned that the past years has been busier than ever because of the change of how we live and work. And I believe it's similar with Ingo and Eileen as well. What has been for each of you guys, right? Some of the new challenges, or what has been some of the changes you guys have seen since COVID happened, when we moved into lockdown for the past 18 months? What were some challenges that has arisen in the past year plus for each of you?
I think, Yeah, there's a couple of things. Well, I'm not sure where to start. There's this long list of challenges, but I think one of the biggest challenge that we see is the change in the mindset of the workplace and the demands of the employees around focusing on their wellness, right? As you can see, now the industry, we're talking about the great vaccination, right? I think this whole pandemic has caused people to really rethink about, what does work mean to them, and what do I want out from my workplace? So I think that increasingly becoming more demanding on functions like HR, where you have to be at the front foot of coming up with initiatives in terms of engagement, in terms of how do you at the real time be able to take the pulse of the organization, to understand what are some of the challenges around wellness, around the emotional issues that employees are facing. So definitely in the last 2 years, I think that's been our focus, and I think that's the change that we are seeing. So I think other than changing the physical workspace, to make it into a flexible one, we also think about how do we prepare the minds of both the managers as well as the employees, to kind of create the environment, because I think the ability for us to provide a conducive workplace actually helps in the mental wellness of the individuals. Because having that flexibility, gives them the ease of moving around their own work schedules to be able to meet both their personal as well as their work demands. So I think that's probably the biggest change that we've seen. Yeah.
Good point. So I'll just try to pick out a few key things and summarize it. So I think one of the key things you mentioned is that there has been a shift of perception and perspective that employees have. Right, they expect different set of, I think, ways to work today, and that has led to things like you mentioned. Now there's this whole trend of like the great resignation, which is an interesting thing given how it's a tough market today as well. So it's such a interesting topic that seems to be counterintuitive, but it's happening, right? So how people live and also adapting towards a different way to work. Now it's not physical, now it's more virtual in that sense. So great points there. Ingo, Eileen, what do you guys think? What are some changes that are unique towards your companies that you see?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think in terms of the biggest challenges, at least that has been brought on by the pandemic, is especially for organization like us as an agency, we thrive on collaboration. We thrive on the energy and the culture and the dynamism of people coming together, brainstorming. We're a creative industry, we need to thrive on bouncing off each other's energy, and that makes it hard. So challenges that, at least we have seen is our culture dissipating, because it's hard. As much as we try, we have religiously continue our town halls to keep everyone informed and all of that. But it is, you can't bounce off the energy in the virtual world, I would say, as much as you try, I think. And people have a tendency to hide behind the screens. But also, I think, with the initiatives and all of that we do, I do see, I think, that for us, at least, is one of our biggest challenge, which is to try and keep the culture that we have intact. And especially when, new members join the organization and they're literally joining from their bedroom, right? Ultimately, one day they wake up, they're in another organization. Today they wake up and they're this organization, and they can't feel that difference. It's different from day one walking into the office and being greeted and all of that. So that, I think, that has the biggest, honestly, impact. I know a lot of people talk about the blurring of lines of work life and all of that, which is very true. But for us, at least, that energy that we have as an organization feels that it's gone. So that is, I think, where we are grappling with as well, which is why we kind of kicked off, mental health initiatives, because as we saw more and more of this, we also noticed that people became lonelier and more dejected, because it's hard, when when you have a bad day, you go and have a coffee and then you bitch about it. And then you feel better after you bitch about it. But now you can't talk to anyone. And it's different. Like, you can't go and tell your husband about it. Like, even for me, I can't go and tell my husband, and he'd be like, oh, okay. It's different. Like, you go and have a beer and then you kind of talk about it slightly different, right? So that's why I think it really triggered us to start to think about how do we, stop just thinking about, fun, engaging cultural activities now, but to really start saying that, hey, you know what, everyone, you're not alone, actually. We all actually feel the same, and we all feel a little bit lonely. We all feel, probably a lot more frustrated than where we were before. and to just start these initiatives and tell them that it's actually okay, and that it's not normal, and it's okay, because you have to realize that the world's not normal anymore. And we've seen that conversations started opening up. We've seen that people who are struggling on their own, whether they had struggles with their peers or they had struggles with their team leaders, they are now starting to reach out, versus reaching out via a letter of resignation. I would say they're at least now reaching out and having a conversation. So for me, I think that's really the ambition that we're trying to achieve.
That's a good point. I'll pick up a point before I pass to Ingo. So I think you touched on a good point, which is the connectedness piece of every workplace, right? I think the key thing that we miss today, or we don't have today, it's that the water cooler chats where you just go around, you ask for good stuff. Like that is a big part. We are humans after all, and humans are social beings, right? Social creatures, and it's a big part whereby if you are locked at home, you may have family around you, but like you said, I mean, it's not the same. You see your husband every day, you see your wife every day. It's someone that you really don't want to talk about stuff, with certain things with them, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it's easier if you have people around that you can just talk about different things. But I think the point that I'll come back to later is this pillar of like connectedness, not just mental well-being, but how do we get people connected in a not connected environment today? So that's a great point, Eileen. Thanks for that. Ingo, what about you? What a challenge that Food Panda has in this time?
I mean, what Eileen and Daniel shared absolutely resonates with me. I see a lot of familiarity in the challenges, but also the reactions or the actions taken towards those. I think one of the biggest challenges for our employees is obviously in line with like the side effects that come from working in a remote engagement, sometimes out of the country, even in a far remote area where you sometimes don't have the connectivity or the tools even, or when you're separated far away from your loved ones who may face, any issues and you can't see them. So it was evident to us that a one-size-fits-all policy that usually serves 99% of the employees, or better so the company, is just not the way we define HR anymore in Food Panda. We understand that we need to go far beyond that in a more hyper-personalized way in catering for our employees. And that is a tough challenge to address, while at the same time managing business continuity, measuring the guaranteeing the safety measures that arose during the pandemic. And at the same time, we had to look into growth of the organization, because as you you can guess, the demand on our services has rapidly changed. And while I would like to defer that, this is a good problem to have, it was very challenging for our business, right? In one market, we have been negotiating well with governments to be an essential services, and other ones we faced complete lockdowns. In other markets, we had to support our riders and restaurants to adjust our cost models just to keep them afloat, because we believe when they are not successful, when they cannot sustainably operate, our whole ecosystem cannot operate. So and that has challenged me in a personal way to ask a few questions like, are we doing enough? Are the programs and the initiatives that we look into, are they proactive enough, or is there another opportunity to go more upstream to solve problems before they actually occur? And as I mentioned earlier, to me, the underlying culture is key to that. Being psychologically safe, collaborate, innovate together. And with our people team, we have then specifically looked into new solutions in an accessible and scalable way to address the well-being, the productivity of our employees, but also, the engagement per se. Yeah. I'm happy to share more about the specific initiative that we took and why we decided to do so. But for us, it was important to revolutionize a little bit about the traditional, the traditional ways of working, the traditional benefits program that you usually provide as a company to your employees.
It's a good point, right? And thanks, Ingo, for that. I'll highlight a few key things. I think what's unique to Food Panda is that you guys have more different stakeholders that you deal with rather than just only employees. I mean, employees is hard enough, but you guys have the riders, you guys have the merchants, and different people that you have to really address and make sure they're doing right. So that's an even more complicated thing to think about as well. But I think you touched on a good point, which is the next thing I want to discuss, which is what are initiatives you guys have taken to actually support the people and different things in place, right? Before that, I just want to touch on that there are initiatives that you can roll out, there are programs, there are also policies and different things and practices that the companies can put in place, right? starting off like Daniel mentioned, a podcast that the group CEO puts in place, or for example, certain policies that helps balance work and life that some companies put in place, all the way towards actual programs that you guys may run. So I think there's different facets to this, but nice segue into the next piece, which is what are things that you guys have explored to implement to help tackle mental well-being. I think the common thread that brings all three of you guys together is that we have the honor of serving you guys as a mental health benefit to you guys, but feel free to touch on that or even other things that you guys have put in place as well. But yeah, Ingo, how about you first?
Yeah. So again, I think first things first, and without wanting to sound like a broken record, culture is actually key, because whatever program or initiative you need to put in place should be reflective of the desired culture of who you want to be as a company, or the way you want to be perceived by your employees, by partners or riders. So psychologically, safety is a design by default in anything and everything that we do. I think the second key thing is like really investigate the problems and the challenges that we have. We leverage a lot of data in Panda, being a tech company. So we use not only big data, but also small data, like conversations truly matter to us, whether it's through the business partner or whether it's, through Zoom nowadays. Getting insights around the mental well-being challenges that people do face. One of the key changes that we have introduced, speaking of big data, is that our engagement survey has a dedicated portion now where we capture insights around mental well-being as an additional data point to inform our talent management strategy or engagement strategy in a more significant way. To an earlier point that I've mentioned, right, our benefits programs or generally our engagement programs, we wanted to put them at an overhaul. Like any other company, Panda offers employee assistance program, or some call it the emergency program, that exists 24/7, not just for our own employees, but also their family members. But that is a very downstream kind of thinking or a downstream kind of approach, right? Something has already happened. And we wanted to get in a space before something bad happens or before people really get burned out or face tremendous challenge in their personal lives. How we can get more into the preventative space. And, in true Panda fashion, people huddled, and there was an employee resource group that has emerged out of this. They're called the Zen Punders. And they took this topic really at heart, right? They're not only advocates of mental well-being, they create a lot of awareness, but they also provide an extended arm to employees who do face challenges. They've also been key driver in what we call the first aid in mental health. It's a certification that you can obtain, and it's all about picking up signals and sign whether someone struggles and how we can offer in a gentle and safe way to provide education or to provide a support avenue. And speaking of a support avenue, one thing that was significantly missing in our approach, which is why I was very compelled to partner with Intellect, is we needed to do something at scale. So Panda was expanding quite rapidly, and yet, the disconnect, the disengagement, and also the mental well-being has been at a challenge. So we needed to find a solution that is first and foremost accessible, anytime, anywhere, at your fingertips, and it is easy to navigate. Secondly, it needed to be something that is scalable. Panda operates across 12 markets with different cultures and languages, so it needed to be something that is understood and accepted in the local markets. And last but not least, it had to be something that is personalized, because the challenges that individuals sometimes face, they're a very personal affair. No policy can cover that, right? So whether you want to get better in terms of managing your time or your workflow, or you want to be less stressed, or you want to be better at building relationships either at work or with our partners, right? So we wanted to choose a platform that can help all in these areas, but not fully like just speaking to bots or to scripts that run in the background through some form of AI. No, and this is what we found in Intellect as a partner, that there is an avenue within the solution that you can talk to real people, to real professionals, in case you need to. And I'm very glad that this was something that resonated very well with our partners. In fact, the pilot that we run together had an enormous success rate. So 89% of those who participated have actually asked us to make Intellect a permanent benefit in our portfolio, which we then did.
Great points. I mean, thanks for sharing that, Ingo. I think I like the point that you've explained it a few seconds, right? The culture you put in place, upskilling your leaders, and then the programs you put in place to tackle this. So I think it's nicely laid out that there are different facets and angles to actually tackle this, but and different ways would help in different means as well. But what you've done is actually try to kind of look at it from not just putting in place benefits, but also how can you upskill people? How can you put in place culture that would make it safe and comfortable for people to speak out and seek support as well. But yeah, definitely, it's good to hear how you actually broke it down into the needs that Food Panda needed, right? You guys operate in tough markets because of thousands of employees and not including even riders and partners, and something to help you scale. It's a good point there. Yeah, and I'm glad that Intellect Help serves this need as well. So thanks for mentioning that. Great. So, Lean, how about you? What are things you guys have put in place, approaches and things that you have considered as well?
Yeah, so I mean, very similar, I think, to what Ingo has shared as well. Partnering Intellect for the Employee Assistance Program. When we kind of kicked it off, we wanted to ensure that we got the message out to say that this is not just the organization providing you this, but rather it is something that we truly believe in. So we kicked off, at least with all our leaders, sharing their stories, each and every one of us, in terms of how we felt during the pandemic, how down, how up, how all the challenges that we felt, and we kicked it off with those stories, and that session went really well because it made people understand that leaders can be vulnerable too. Leaders have moments where they don't feel yay, okay, every day, all the time. So, and since then we've had series of trainings. I think we've had the same, we've had first aider training as well for our leaders to know how to identify symptoms, or at least be able to have the right conversations and not freak out, I would say, when someone reaches out to them. And then we've had other trainings in terms of managing mental fatigue. How do you manage burnout, workload, and all of that? And in fact, during the World Mental Health Day, we sent out sort of a mental wellness kit, and I wrote a personal note with my stories in terms of how I feel, to just really kind of break that barrier of it's okay to talk about it, and I want everyone to talk about it. But more importantly is that acknowledging it and asking for help, that is the most important thing. And whether today you go to this organization, you go to the next organization, the problems doesn't go away, ultimately. So now we're actually thinking about our second phase, because we have addressed internal, but a lot in the agency world, we are very much driven by external factors, which is like our client partners. So we're now in the midst of planning our second phase that we're likely to going to kick off for next year. How do we bring our clients now into the journey with us? What are the initiatives that we will put in place that could solve, for example, I would say maybe unrealistic expectations in workload or time management, that our teams, especially our young ones who don't know how to deal with when the clients are like saying, oh no, you're going to do it, on a Friday night, and to just help them set some boundaries and get our clients onto the same journey with us as well. So that's sort of now our second phase ambition that we're at least looking at, because just dealing internally doesn't really fully solve the core issues that we will have.
That's interesting. Sorry. So I'm just, I think it's a bit of echo. All right. Great. So I think just kind of touch on the point that you mentioned, Lean. So I think two parts: putting in place programs and initiatives that would help employees, but also looking outside, right? One of the things that you could help put in place as a company, as an approach towards how you guys work. In your case, right, like I said, is drawing boundaries as to how you guys would liaise with clients and setting boundaries to protect your employees' well-being, which I think is a great point that is very relevant for the ad agency industry, whereby typically you have, it's not that it's fast-paced because you guys want it to be, right? Because clients ask for it and then you have to deal with it consecutively. So what I'm saying is putting in place ways that you guys would operate that meets their needs, but also meets your employees' well-being needs as well, which is a great point, right? Policies to protect their needs. So fantastic point there. Great. Daniel, what about you? How have you guys taken on mental wellness in different ways, from individual, team to organizational views as well?
Yeah, so this is definitely a topic that we eat, live, and breathe every day. We're constantly thinking about new ideas. So I think for us, I think one of the key things that we wanted to do was, I think what Ingo has also alluded to, is to be proactive, to be at the front foot of addressing the issues before they even come up. So a couple of things that we've done, definitely I think the mental health first aider was being mentioned. And I think Eileen also mentioned a very specific problem now with the pandemic, and that's for new joiners, right? They feel disconnected, they don't have a sense of the company or the culture. So what we did was actually we started this thing called Buddy at Shoulders for all the new joiners. So we ensure that every new joiner will be buddied up with somebody that's been with the firm for some time, and there's a series of programs, fun things. And I guess, of course, the firm actually sponsors them, I think $50 Starbucks voucher for them to have connections, coffee connections, right? Of course, restrictions, we can still have coffee in twos. So that's a good thing. And I guess the other thing that we wanted to do is that we were consciously trying to understand what do employees want. Because I think we found through the years is that you can come up with a lot of programs, you can purchase a lot of tools, you can do trainings, but if it doesn't hit where the employee's heart is, or it doesn't hit to where the needs are, a lot of these programs will fall flat. So one of the things that we did was actually we started this yearly tradition where we have a competition, and we call it the Singapore Feedback Channel Competition. So our commitment to that is that we put the powers back to the employees to let the employees tell us what do you want from us, right? To help you to address some of the issues that you're facing. It can be the work, it can be mental wellness, etc. And then the commitment on our part is to make it a reality for them. So through this channel, we've actually had a couple of pretty interesting ideas that came from employees, and they are now permanent features in our Singapore office and also some APAC offices. So for example, we have well-being hours. So for example, every month, all employees can take just 2 hours off to do anything they want. They don't have to tell their managers, they don't have to tell their bosses where they're going or what they're doing with their time. This is your time, right? So you do anything you want with it. We also just probably 2 months back, we started this thing called Meeting Free Fridays, right? Where this is really time when all the APAC locations do not have meetings on a Friday. And they use the time to really connect with people, with your team members, where sometimes you're just so bogged down and you're just constantly focusing on work and meetings that you just neglect, even like new joiners or people that you have not met for a long time. So these are the two ideas that came from the employees. So I think that really went well. And I think because it's from the employees, I think there was a sense of ownership. And therefore, we got quite good success. The other thing that we do quite often as well is that every quarter, we diligently do our pulse surveys to get a pulse of the organization. Because I think that's the quickest way for us to understand how we are tracking in terms of the initiatives and how our people are doing. And I guess I guess to overlay all of that, obviously I think Ingo and Eileen has mentioned in terms of partnership with Intellect, I think that really put the tools in the hands of employees 24/7. Especially the live coaching sessions. That's really proactively addressing issues before they come up. Yeah.
Great point. I think that's a very unique one where I like that point there. I wasn't aware of this. I think it's a great point that you guys do, right? Where you are putting the ball in the employees' court in that sense, right? So whereby you're getting them involved into designing initiatives in that sense, right? Open survey and stuff, and get them involved in putting ideas in place and you selecting, your team selecting one of them that would help them. And it would feel, I think it gets a lot more buy-in if it comes from also, it's mutual agreement to this point, right? So I think that's a great idea. No meeting Fridays, wellness hours. I think those are really, really good points that putting those in place helps create that. I think number one, it helps people actually take a break. But number two as well, I think it shows that employer actually cares about their well-being. It's not just all about work. I think that's an important point to signal that employees actually care more so than just put in place things that are just meant to check boxes in that sense. So really, really good points there. So all three of you have
also exploring the no meeting days as well, given that we're all like this Zoom, right? I tell you, it's no joke. The Zoom fatigue is very real.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly the reason why we had to institute that, because I think that was the feedback from people that they're just zone out after some time with the Zoom meetings, and it's real, right? Because if you don't kind of have that discipline to kind of carve out time, be it for yourself or as an organization, right? The wheel will just keep going, and then at some point the wheels will come off. So
yeah.
So I think in a good way, one of the key things that stood out, it's all three of you guys are now looking at ways to be proactively caring for employees and not just waiting to it hits a breaking point. Right? If what traditional solutions did was to be a good safety net there, but what can you do way before that could prevent people from needing that safety net in place there, which is I think an excellent point to touch on. Okay, right, we have, I'm mindful of time flies. We have about 5+ minutes left. It's quite insightful. So I want to throw one final questions to each of you, right? For those listening in, we've got like HR leaders, we've got employees, we've got company heads as well. What is one tip or one point of or perspective you would share with whoever listening? You can pick to leaders, the managers, or the employees themselves to take away and to care for themselves and their people around them as well in the workplace. So maybe I'll do it in reverse. Maybe I'll do it with Daniel first.
So I guess for me, the one tip or one piece of advice that I have, I guess it applies to everyone, is that at the end of the day, you are the driving seat of how you want to manage your mental health, right? Your mental wellness. Because I think I did share before, the companies or HR functions can enable or provide a platform to you. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to have that discipline or you don't want to take the effort, to kind of really look at your mental health as an important aspect of your life and to actively manage it, it's difficult, right? So I think that for me is really having that mindset that you are the drivers of your own health. Yeah.
Good point. So I think just to highlight that, I think it's a great point by the organization and whatever system you're in can put in place the leaders to support you. But as an individual, you have to be aware and acknowledge that you want to take that support to have it help you as well, right? So great point. Awesome. Eileen, what about you? What's one tip you have?
I think I would have, I think to the employers, I would say just start. Because, honestly, debating about, should we do this policy or should we not do this policy, it's pointless. It's just get started and tweak along the way, because mental health and wellness is not going to go away. In fact, this is just going to grow as the world becomes faster and faster. So don't delay and just start. I think for the individuals and employees, I really echo what Daniel says, is at the end of it, the power is back in your own hands. The organization can provide all the support that's needed. But if you kind of sit there and whine about it or, not do anything about it, it's, I guess, no one else to kind of say other than yourself, right? So I think for employees really is to just have that self-awareness as well and self-management skills, and then leverage what you have. But whatever the organization provides is not the be-all and end-all. I'm sure that a lot of the power still rests within themselves. So that would be probably my 2 prongs. Yeah.
No, it's a great point. So for employees is to start looking at mental well-being, just start somewhere and tackle it, and you figure it along the way as well. And
if we say that I have no time for the intellect coaching that I have in there, I don't have time. We all don't have time. You choose the decision and you make choices.
Yeah, you're right. Take the driving seat, right? I think to actually make the choice to do so. That's a great point. Thanks, Eileen. And Ingo, what's one tip you have for those listening in?
Yeah, if I would have to pick one thing, it would be educate. Yeah, I think education is kind of the cornerstone for driving any solution. And I think, especially when it comes to mental well-being, education is the first important step to create awareness, breaking down stigmas, and showing to your employees that you listen, that you care. But also educating specifically your leadership team. I think we need different leaders during those seasons. Leaders need to be more vulnerable. They need to be more empathetic. And empathetic means literally listening to your employees, not shooting right away with solutions. And to me, being vulnerable creates what I mentioned earlier, the safety net that people need, a safe culture. And empathy is a great way to create trust between employees, between leaders and partners and vendors in the organization or society at large. Yeah. So for me, it would be educate.
That's a great point. So educate and have empathy as leaders themselves, right? I think it's two key things whereby they help employees be aware that they can seek support. It's a safe place to do so, and have yourself, managers, people around you, and even employees themselves be more empathetic to listen to those around them. I think those are great points. Awesome. So I think we've heard a good amount from each of you of how in each of your companies, what are the challenges, what are the things that you guys have taken to actually tackle this new way of working and this new struggles, as well as what are some advice that you guys have for people listening, and whether you are employees or people leaders themselves, right? So I think it's super insightful. We are at the cusp of the session. So firstly, thank you all three for joining the session. I have learned a lot. I think each of you guys, I think it's good to see what other folks are doing as well. And I think for those listening in, I'm sure they have learned a thing or two about how in such large organizations, you guys tackle and see mental well-being. To kind of wrap it up, just to share, I think just to kind of highlight the key thing, companies like all three of you guys run are proactive in driving things. And that's amazing that where people in these positions to decide can be proactive, that's a great thing. But it also is down to the individual employees to also take the chance to be aware and take up solutions to support themselves as well. I think it's a two-pronged approach, as I said, right? Because the company can put things in place, employees have to be there to also utilize it to make it work both ways. So really insightful. Thank you all three for joining. I can imagine it's a busy time, so thank you all for taking time. And we'll wrap up this session here on mental wellness in the workplace. Thank you, Ingo, Eileen, and Daniel. And we'll wrap up this session and move on to the next one. Thank you three so much.
Thanks
for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.